thôi cả. You can go ahead and walk over there. Nhiều đâu đó lo. It's just sloughing over the side there, and
heard that noise from?
Well, part of it is the helicopter, but there's a bunch of water running underneath of us.
Oh, that's what I thought.
This is what we call glacial silt. So whenever rocks fall into glaciers, it gets really finely crushed down. Anything that is moving inside of a glacier that's actively flowing will just get finely crushed. But in these mountains, we have a lot of igneous rock, just volcanic rock, and then we also have a lot of mica, which is kind of the same stuff that they put in makeup products to make it nice and shimmery. They put it in bath bombs to make it glow in the water. And so that's why you see that really beautiful little shimmer as it goes along. It's that mica just reflecting in the water as it moves. It's really pretty. Kind of move it around and see all the different little designs that it makes. It's kind of cool. But yeah, as soon as this silt gets really finely mixed together, it gets distributed and rolled up along the sides, all along here, and also buried down in our river, all the way down to the coast of Anchorage, all along the Turnagain Arm. We have what's called mud flats. And it's like, instead of having sandy beaches, we have nice big mud pits. So along that edge, that silt will get distributed down there, and once it becomes saturated with water, it becomes very sticky, almost like quicksand. It turns into a thixotropic non-Newtonian fluid, which is just a fancy word for not following the laws of Newton. It's in between being a solid and a liquid, like cornstarch and water mixed together, or the same consistency of ketchup. And so once you step out into it, it will start to suck you down in. Kind of like quicksand. If we see all this stuff behind us here, you can see this is one of those nice mud pits. You can see how gooey that is. It's unlike normal mud, it's thixotropic mud. As you can see, the more saturated with water it becomes, the more odd of consistency it becomes. And if you stand into this mud for a long amount of time, it'll slowly sink you down into it. And once you get past your knees in that mud, it's really hard to get out. If you're down on the mud flats when the tide's out, it's kind of like a sandbar a little bit, dries out. People will wander out there, get stuck. Once that tide starts to come back in and resaturate that silt, it will get them super stuck to where they can't get out, and then the tide will come back in and drown them. Or people have been rumored to have been ripped in half before because it's been so much of a suction, which is kind of crazy. But it's also very good for your skin. There's lots of different grains inside of there, and so if you put it on your skin, it's like a mud mask. It exfoliates and tightens the pores. We sell little jars of it in our gift shop. It's kind of cool. I definitely would say, if you see a little bit next to you, I would say grab some on your fingers. You can feel it's very silky smooth. It's a very soft texture. You can tell how it would be very good for your skin. You can, if you want to. If you have something to bottle it up, feel free to grab some. If you want to put it in your water bottle, I've had people do that before. In our gift shop, if you guys want to take them back with you or something, feel free. Otherwise, you can put a water bottle out. see the glacier ice glowing from underneath it. Kind of cool.
About like what we're looking at, because it's really dangerous if you don't really know what it is. Yeah. So, really cool like that.
See the three different forms of ice that we have out on this glacier. This top stuff that we've been walking on that's a bit whiter, that's what we call white ice. And since all glaciers are formed from snow accumulation, the white ice is the next ice underneath that snow. So it has the most amount of air trapped inside of it, and it reflects that white color back to you. And then the denser and more compressed it becomes, the more blue it shines. It's a lot clearer, and it just scatters all the little molecules, so it actually absorbs all of the colors and only reflects the blue because it's scattered. It's just like the sky or the ocean. It's the same kind of thing. But yeah, you can see up here it's a little bit whiter, and then as you go down it gets clearer and glassier and bluer. And then it turns into this stuff here with all the silt in it, and this is what we call black or basal ice. And this stuff is actually 60 years old. It's the youngest ice, and it was white and blue glacier ice that melted. And when the glacier does melt, a couple things can happen. It can evaporate into the air, it can fall into the lake there, or it can go to the depths of the glacier down to the base. And down there it collects a lot of rock and dirt and then refreezes with all that rock and dirt trapped inside of it. So that's why it has less moisture into it. It's also the densest, so it has the least amount of air and reflects that dark color, which is the absence of light. So you can kind of see it up and down through the very beautiful. wheel thing and see how much fun. Have you been on it with the ladies and
No, I know that if you go this way, that's for like less advanced groups, that goes straight to the face. Otherwise, you can go all through up there, right? And you can go up top.
Yeah, and we'll make a big loop. Yeah, if everyone wants to do the pictures here, we can get moving again. That's water, or it's this air being released from the ice.
But that's still going to be really, really cold out.
That comes and joins up with this one.
Yes.
We're on what we call a lateral move. about 700 feet of ice now. But on all of this rockier bit, we can see a lot of moss. If you've been seeing on the ground, you see little green pieces of moss sticking up. So what happens, these guys, also nicknamed glacial mice, and I'll tell you why in a second, little pieces of seeds or whatnot get carried on by birds and wind and get trapped in the little grooves of the glacier and then start to grow. With the crazy amount of sunshine that we have out here and then a little bit of water and that dark rock likes to grow, so it will start to grow up and raise onto a little pedestal of ice. So that moss will shield the ice underneath it from being melted away, and it will lift up on that little pedestal and then eventually topple over and start to grow on the other side. And so these pieces of moss are actually uniform throughout. There's nothing inside of them, maybe a couple little pieces of gravel, but it's just one squishy ball of moss. They're kind of cool. They're actually quite unique to this glacier. Scientists don't know why. Most glaciers don't have them, and we do. It's just happened to be the right climate, the right settings for it to grow. But they're nicknamed glacial mice because when they are on those little pedestals, sometimes a wind will come by and it will blow them all away and they scatter across the ice like little mice hopping through it. It's kind of cool to watch. But yeah, if you do find a piece that you really like, feel free to grab it, take it home with you, put it in a little bit of a dark area or a dark mat with cold water and sunshine, and it will grow like a weed. It's pretty cool. And they're kind of fun to mess around with. About 5 miles up the glacier, you can actually find huge ones. The biggest one I've seen was about twice the size of a basketball. They're just giant uniform balls of moss. But also, when we see all these rocks along here, whenever there's a rock a little bit bigger than the size of your fist, it turns into what we call boulder table or walking rocks. So all throughout the summertime, the sun heats up the surface of the ice and melts it down, except for the ice directly underneath these rocks. It's shielded from that sun because of the shadow it casts. And you can actually see a great example of it here. So eventually, that rock will become lifted up onto a little pedestal like the moss is, and then eventually it'll get to a point where it's standing on that pedestal just enough that it topples over, moves a couple feet or just a couple inches depending on whether it's going up or down, and then it will start to build another pedestal underneath it like ice stair steps that move with the sunshine. So these rocks can move about 30 yards a summer, all the while moving towards the sun. They can go up hills, fall into crevasses, and climb out of them. So any rock that you see, there's a little mound of ice behind. And that's a nice little pedestal. You're actually sitting on a great one right now. Yeah, you can see that little ice lifting it up slightly. In the beginning of the summer, the guides will place bets on different rocks and see which one moves the fastest.
I'm sure they do. Nope.
Not a wild one.
Wait, I did.
Yeah. Did you see the when we went on Tuesday, like by the wolves and that one lane there? They kept walking the gate, like the fence, like they're opening the gate.
Yeah.
They were doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you guys are just going to clone each other.
Take some of here. Hungry now.
Goes over, around, or underneath of it. It's kind of like this with the serac, which is pretty delicate, so they do fall sometimes in the summertime. You definitely see it. In the wintertime, it happens pretty frequently. But it's pretty cool to watch. Sometimes you get to see them like have off, which is like when they fall down. It's pretty dramatic. It's really loud, so you'll just see these little pops and then it'll fall down. So it's really cool to look at. You guys can kind of see the debris bands in the ice, which are those black lines that go up through it. That's where that dirt and everything is just kind of got inside the ice over these years. So if you guys want any group pictures,
นแฟลตท็อปก็ได้นะ
ที่ลงหน่อยที่ถ่ายรูปหน่อยโอ้ยสวย
ตรงนี้เราที่ดูที่ไอซ์สเกต อันนี้ที่จริงจะเรียกเป็นเค้กไอ้ที่มันมีข้ามอยู่นะ
said they're like little French fries. They're like really maybe you guys do like do you guys make slushies, you know? Yeah, the snow cone stuff. You can just get your little snow cone. Glacier snow cone. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Hiking that up, though. We don't like- Oh, they hike it up here. Yeah, it's optional. Yeah. There you go. You guys want a group picture?
Yeah.
like we said to coming out, just make sure that we're holding on to the seat with our hands.
We can use the seat now if you want.
But I don't suggest it. I don't know who you're questioning.
The year is long into gray, and now we're just getting red.
So, you know, it all worked out.
That's all we need, a ring gear.